let's spend a little time going over the pivot points of the body, specifically when we're doing a pose that is Supta Baddha flips. So when I first start out in the swing, the thing that I teach that is so important is to keep the hips heavy. Because the hips are controlling the pivot point of the body. The hips is the axis, like a wheel. It's the center of a wheel. So when I teach when the head goes back, the hips come up. And when the hips go down, the head comes up. So we're like a lever in the body. Every single pose that I'm doing, like as a beginner pose, is trying to teach people the pivot points of the body. So if we keep our spine in one nice straight line, then we start to access the core power. Otherwise, we're muscling and efforting through all the poses. So let's translate that into, so even in Flying Monkey. So in Flying Monkey, I teach you to push the hips up. And once you push the hips up, it's easier to do a bicep curl. Now, if you don't push the hips up, when you go to do a bicep curl, it's really hard. Okay? And it might not seem like a big deal here. Let me digress for 1 minute so you can see why I teach the poses in the directions I do. But when we come to do the high flyers, if you're like this, okay, and you're trying to pull yourself up, but you don't push your hips up, it's really hard. But when you learn to push your hips up, it's really easy. So we always lead with the hips, and that's the pivot point. Okay? So if I don't push my hips up really hard, right, it's hard for me to pull. If I push my hips up and pull simultaneously, really easy to come into high flyers. So I'm going to teach you that next. Okay, so let's go back. All right, so now we're here. We're getting ready for our flying butterfly. So I pull my hips up. I come to sit. I thread through. So my hips stay up, my head comes down. Okay? So cool. So this is the leverage or the pivot point of the body right here. Okay, great. So when I go to reach, you can see my head is down and my hips are up. It's already lined. Okay? So then if I go to flip, it's really easy. Right? You can see the flip. I'm not going to come out. I'm just going to show you the difference. So then, when I start to reach up higher, I have to pull to get my hips over my head. Do you see that? So if the hands are higher, I just have to pull to get the alignment so I can flip. So, if you wanted to make it easier for you, just to practice, you could bring your swing down lower. Okay? So go ahead. So get in your, go ahead and lower the swing down just 1 notch. Or, you know, bring the leg loops up, whichever way is easier. And then see if you can get your feet over the swing. Just try it for fun. We'll do it one more time together. Very good. And while you're getting that ready, if you lower the swing, it does become easier. Then just bring the leg loops up 1. It's the same thing. Yeah, very good. So it's a little bit easier with the leg loops higher and the swing lower because you don't have such a large distance to pivot over. And we're going to keep, well, it's an experiment, but I have done this a couple times for sure. There's been a few trial runs. And we just try it, right? So we're just going to come through floating Buddha. Bend the knees, reach up. Now notice what happens if you don't push your hips up. Try to pull yourself up without bending, without pushing the hips forward, and feel the pivot point I'm talking about. Much harder, right? If you keep the hips back. So now push the hips forward first, then pull, and notice how much easier that is, right? So you feel you're picking up what I'm throwing down there? That makes sense? Okay, so then when we come through, in this position it's really nice because we have all of this support. So it's helping our hips stay elevated, and then we can just slowly release the swing. We enjoy every step of the way, right? Every part is a therapeutic. And now from here, just grab the leg loops, just reach back. You don't have to pull your hands up really high for this one, okay? Just grab where you can. And just notice that if you arch, you cannot flip. You have to tuck to flip, right? So your head comes down, and you're looking towards your navel. And then you kick your elevator down. Well, anyhow, I'll go through it again. Okay. I gotcha. Yeah, let me just finish it for the video. So, once I tuck, I look towards my navel, I kick my legs up and over, and I'm pulling with my arms. The swing goes behind my back. So that's going to be the last one for today. Let's move on to some of the other poses because they're all fun. So I want to move on to our dancing Shiva.